Star Wars is such a unique thing to work on. I mean, it's got such a gigantic legacy of almost 50 years now. Most of the folks that we hire here have a Star Wars knowledge and a passion to work on it. And for me as a supervisor, that's just like a dream come true.
It felt like the closest thing to me to actually being involved in those prequels when they got made. And, you know, I think about going to the movie theater, watching those. I think about like early on in my career thinking like, oh my God, I wish I could work at Skywalker Ranch. You don't really ever think that you're gonna get to be even a small part of something so iconic.
The legacy that's been put out by those that have worked in this universe before, and they have set the bar incredibly high. So really, I'm just incredibly grateful to have had the opportunity to work on this series with these characters who have been so monumental in getting me to where I am today.
Sound is not seen on screen, so you can feel it, you hear it and feel it, and I always look at it as an emotional component, but it is part of the story. It's like a character in a way, but it's got this sort of secret superpower that it's invisible and it's emotional based and you feel it. So that's, for me, has been a joy about working out here at Skywalker, because you can expand a script. It's a lot of subliminal work to make that happen, and also the collaboration of the people that want to work here know that that's our superpower and they come here for that.
It's so cool to work on the Star Wars stuff because like it's such like a cool sandbox to play in. It's such a good opportunity to use sound. You need the sound there to kind of guide you through, you know, all these scenes, all these moments, and really make it like fun and exciting. If the sound ever falls flat, you really feel it in content like this. You don't get the excitement, you don't get the clarity of things. You really need the sound. You know, it's as big of a player as anything else to kind of like draw you into this universe. One thing that's really cool about Mandalorian is every episode is so different from the next. So there's so much opportunity to bring a world to life from episode to episode.
Diving back in with these characters, it had been a while since we'd seen them, and getting back in and seeing what Grogu had been up to was most exciting to me.
The Mandalorian itself is such a unique Star Wars series in that it kind of takes what happened in the Star Wars films, particularly the classic trilogy, as it's just years after the classic trilogy, and really kind of developed its own aesthetic really quickly in the first couple of seasons. And what was exciting for me coming into this sort of Mandoverse was really kind of picking up where Matthew Wood and David Acord had really left off and what they had established in the first couple of seasons. And what I was most excited about was really continuing that aesthetic of it's Star Wars, but where do you find that curated line between the familiar and the new?
Those are the kind of things, expanding upon the legacy of what was created before with Ben Burtt, David Acord, making these, droids, creatures, locations, ships, vehicles that are all going to harken back to something we've heard before, but also expand upon in the universe. So when we put these shows up, next to each other on Disney Plus, you can go from our animation to our films to our streaming series, and they're all going to have a nice parity of quality that's going to be really good to hear. Sound is our sort of subconscious and emotional glue that holds it all together for Star Wars.
As a colleague and a fan of Ben Burtt, Ben Burtt is one of those sound designers that launched thousands of sound careers all over the world. Looking at his work with synthesizers and creating the voice of R2-D2, I went and got a new reissued version of the classic ARP 2600 synth that he got, and R5-D4 is a classic example of this. R5-D4 in the original Star Wars, everyone knows him. You probably even had the classic action figure, but he doesn't speak all that much. And that is something that we run into with Star Wars again and again, is that it'll be so famous even though it's on screen for less than a minute. And then you have to extrapolate that and create sounds that, because the story requires so much more dramatically of that character. So R5-D4 in Mandalorian Season 3, and particularly in that last episode, has to communicate a wide range of emotion.
And I know John and specifically would be during the mix, I want to hear him shaking here. I want to hear his fear a little more. And Dave Collins would have to make things for that to really have it showcase as a character.
So I went in and did all of those classic Ben Burtt techniques with the ARP 2600 synth and sweeping tones and using filters and vocoding and doing every trick I could in the book to try and expand his vocal language, R5D4's vocal language, because he was a comedic beat in this episode and throughout the series.
Got it. Good job, buddy.
In meeting with Favreau during the mix, we came up with particular sounds of what it would sound like when R5D4 is scared. I think the sound that finally won out is, a couple pair of my kid's shoes in the dryer knocking around, and you hear this kind of knocking sound as he's kind of shaking, and that was a very particular sound that Jon Favreau liked. And there was a lot of experimenting to try and make it feel like classic Star Wars, but also be very new in a natural way, in a way that somehow seemed inevitable and familiar.
No.
When you see Grogu driving, IG, it's like there's tense moments, but it's also a little ridiculous. The blend there is just keeping the humor alive. Anytime that baby's on screen, it's just jaw dropping. It's so cute.
Will you cut me loose?
Yes.
Thank you for your help. Grogu, I'm gonna need you to be brave for me, okay? We can't keep running. If we don't take out Moff Gideon, this will never end.
That was a fun, moment. Again, once again, harkening back to an early character from our season with Taika Waititi's droid there, and to have it come back and just be in a monosyllabic sort of situation made for the comic relief. And it was funny, that scene, because the temp track came from our picture editorial team.
The wonderful, just beefy button pushes of the yes, no, and their button pushes were so massive, because they wanted the comedy of slamming down, bam, yes, bam, no.
Seeing those red guards is great because we just had them, we saw them as viewers. We saw them in Rise of Skywalker in that final battle there.
No.
To have those red guards come out, it's showcasing the Imperial remnant, and whatever they have, throwing the whole kit and caboodle at Din Djarin.
Favreau's taste is to really have it sound like a movie. Like he wants, even though it's, on streaming, it's on Disney Plus, he wants it to feel big and theatrical, and he wants it to feel like a movie. It's kind of like everybody has their specific and unique sounds, like the Darksaber has its sound.
The Darksaber, I believe, is a creation of David Acord. And it's so cool because it has the characteristics of a lightsaber, but has much more of sort of that resonant steel kind of hum as opposed to an electric buzz. It gives it this kind of sheen and this kind of sharpness. Which I think is particularly important because you can't see the whole point is that the blade is like a black hole, but you're hearing it. You're hearing the steel.
It really helps seeing the incredible armor that they're wearing. The visuals help tell us so much, and then we carry along with Dave's sound design to help sell the violence of those weapons, the dominance of those characters, the kind of all is lost nature that they deliver.
What we're able to do at Skywalker Sound is go into our vast library of Star Wars sounds that a lot of very talented sound designers have contributed to over the years. And in particular with The Last Jedi, that's Ren Kleiss' work. So we were able to take some of Ren's work there and make it very consistent with what you hear in The Last Jedi, so that you immediately know, not just visually, but sonically, who these guys are and where this is all going.
And then to have them sort of be isolated where you're wondering about the safety of Grogu at the same time, to keep that heightened right after those guards have killed one of our favorite characters in the previous episode. So tensions are high, and we also want to have, all of those things feel like a threat, and sound is an easy shortcut to do that with the amazing visuals that have been created.
You did good, kid.
I love the episodic nature of The Mandalorian. We go to so many different wild places throughout this season, and at the same time, telling this macro story about the reclamation of Mandalore and Bo-Katan's journey, and how Din is so pivotal in making that happen. When he says, your song is not yet written in the episode before, and then we see, in the last episode, we see that song being written in that final battle.
I love that we are left at the end of the episode after they have a new marshal now with IG-11. But then we have a plot of land that Din Djarin and Grogu have been given, and we get to see where they're going to go next, and we've kind of brought it down back to them. Their original sort of, story of the Mandalorian is their story.
The fact that Din walked away from his profession and redefined himself with this child who is now a foundling means that this is just the beginning.
I had the opportunity to work with Deb Chow on Mandalorian in a previous season, as she was one of the episodic directors, and I knew that she had an ear for sound, which I was very excited to experience when I got the call to do Obi-Wan. One thing that she had said to us early on is she was very grateful for all of our Star Wars knowledge and coming into the show, but she's like, this is also a story I want to tell beyond all that, and that's also exciting too, because you're telling a very human story that happens to be set inside the Star Wars universe.
I was very excited to be involved in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. A long time before we started the mix, we had a spotting session with Deb, and she gave us the outline of the story, and I remember being on that call with Matt Wood and John Borland, and just feeling this sense of anticipation and excitement to hear her outline for these characters and what was going to happen, and the build up to even the finale and the journey that they were going to take.
Deb is so curated and it's so well thought out. She was so well prepared. You knew what you were going in to do. And then it was a matter of eliciting those performances on set to make that believable. And the performances from Ewan and from Hayden, especially in 6, when you've got the final battle between Vader and Ewan, it was all about to drive home that story. Deborah Chow is a storyteller.
Well, I think there's a certain tragedy in Obi-Wan. His best friend, who his Padawan, went the way of the dark side, and that's something that weighs heavily on his conscience. And I'm sure a lot of us have things in our past that we'd like to have a chance to remedy. I love that showdown because that planet offered us a place to be able to create space. It had definitely quiet moments, and then we have these musical moments that have been created by some of the themes from John Williams, which was a wonderful throwback to have him come on and want to create a theme for Obi-Wan. And then we wanted the power of their fight to really feel like two people almost in the prime fighting.
Have you come to destroy me, Obi-Wan?
I will do what I must.
Then you will die.
This was going to be their big showdown. So you have Obi-Wan Kenobi picking up rocks and throwing like he's never done before, and then we have Darth Vader also with so much rage inside that body coming at it full force.
And everything is happening all at once, and everything is huge, and also everything is so nuanced with their performances as well. It's truly like a balancing act.
A flashback or even a force back, sometimes we call those, they do offer a moment to give reflection to folks that have maybe seen the show before and other ones that haven't.
You cannot run Obi-Wan. You should reveal to you what you made me.
It definitely is a blend of legacy sounds. You kind of need those in there to ground you in the galaxy. And then John Ball, the sound designer, will create new sounds to tie into the new series.
We don't want it to sound like we're just playing samples from something in the past. We want them to blend together in a logical way, and sometimes it's only about hearing just the energy of what it is, so maybe the words aren't totally clear.
You got to hit the moment with the dialogue and then hit the moment with the music, which is often a trick of taking out, actually, like it's really clearing for those moments.
You do need the moment of uncomfortableness, of quiet, to be with the characters.
Anytime there's a flashback moment, really, in any of this, in any episodes in that series, it was all very hand-picked from the picture department as to where we would do what with each line of dialogue. And we had various iterations working through beat by beat, ultimately ending where we did, which I think we can tell by the reaction everyone's having that is in a pretty good place.
The last moments between Anakin and Obi-Wan was a huge dialogue moment that we really wanted to make sure we hit the right points.
That scene in particular, that's the first scene we looked at and the last scene we worked on. And trying different breaths, I remember hundreds of tracks, it's probably an exaggeration, of various takes on the breath pass, the Hayden breath pass, the James Earl Jones breath pass, sound effects in between that, lightsabers in between that. So it's really like a re-recording mixer's dream to be able to work with these sounds.
Anakin.
The cracked mask had a distortion in it where we'd created something, or Ben Burtt had created something in Return of the Jedi when Darth gets struck down by the Force lightning by Palpatine, and we had this sort of broken rebreather that was in there that we know from Return of the Jedi, but we expanded upon that with a few different elements to make it really sound like this is it, like he's not gonna make it. And that's effectively what Obi-Wan thinks when he walks away, leaving his former friend to die on that planet. It's where he's thought that the story would go at that point, and we really had to feel that he's expended his final energy yelling out Obi-Wan, and he's going to be left on that planet to die.
Anakin's gone. I am what remains.
The open-ended nature of it leaves you with the anticipation at the end that you had at the beginning. I think we get that in so much of Star Wars. The galaxy doesn't end, and these characters' stories don't end. You can't really necessarily wrap them up all in a tidy bow.
I am not your failure,
Obi-Wan.
You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did.
What's going to happen now? Who knows? So we are left in a moment that feels like there could be more stories to be told if we'd like to do that.
The same way, I will destroy you. my friend is truly dead.
Anything can happen, you know, and that to me is the beauty of television. You want to know what new adventures are going to come up next because it's wide open. And I think that's a really wonderful place for Star Wars to be in general, because it is this vast, broad universe where you can do anything.
I am grateful for all the episodic work that we've had, because it's been a real proving ground to bring people in, new folks, new faces, new ideas, new sounds, and I get to sort of shepherd and gently guide us towards something that sounds like what's come before, but also is going to add an extra spark of life that's new. The episodics give us that ability to create something, and you are working on your instincts and your first instincts, which is great.
Hello there.